The heated argument echoed through the marble lobby of the luxury resort development site, drawing stares from every construction worker within earshot, as Luna Sterling jabbed her finger toward the architectural blueprints spread across the folding table. You cannot possibly think that cutting corners on the foundation materials is acceptable just because your client wants to save a few $1,000,000. Zachary Grayson straightened to his full height, his jaw tightening as he met her furious gaze. He was used to people agreeing with him, nodding along to whatever he suggested, because his name carried weight in the architectural world. At 32, he had designed some of the most iconic buildings on the West Coast, and his reputation preceded him everywhere he went. But this woman, this structural engineer who barely reached his shoulder, was challenging him in front of his entire team like she had nothing to lose. "Miss Sterling, I appreciate your concern, but I have been designing buildings since before you probably graduated from college," he said, his voice cold and measured. "The materials I have selected meet all safety requirements and have been approved by 3 separate consulting firms." "Meeting minimum requirements is not the same as doing what is right," Luna shot back, her dark eyes blazing. "I have reviewed the soil composition reports for this site. The ground here is unstable, and if we use the lighter materials you are proposing, this entire structure could develop critical stress fractures within 5 years. Maybe less." Zachary felt his temper rising. He had spent 6 months on this design, working 18-hour days to create something that would stand as a testament to modern architecture while staying within the billionaire client's budget. Marcus Reinhardt, the real estate mogul funding this project, had been explicit about his expectations. He wanted luxury and grandeur, but he also wanted his investment to pay off quickly. "The simulations show the building will be perfectly stable," Zachary said through gritted teeth. "Your simulations are based on ideal conditions," Luna countered, snatching up one of the geological surveys from the table. "But look at this data. The water table fluctuates dramatically during rainy seasons. The soil compaction values are all over the place. If you build on this foundation with those materials, you are gambling with people's lives." The construction foreman, a weathered man named Doug, cleared his throat awkwardly. "Maybe we should take a break and revisit this later." "No," Luna said firmly, never breaking eye contact with Zachary. "This needs to be addressed now, before another dollar is spent on materials that will compromise this building's integrity." Zachary felt something shift in his chest as he stared at her. She was not backing down, not intimidated by his reputation or his authority. And more than that, she was not wrong. He had seen those geological reports, had noted the irregularities, but Marcus had been pushing hard to move forward, to break ground before the end of the quarter. Zachary had told himself that the lighter materials would be fine, that the cost savings would make the client happy, that he could make it work. But standing here, looking at the unwavering conviction in Luna's eyes, he realized something uncomfortable. He had been making compromises, talking himself into decisions that prioritized budget over safety. When had that happened? When had he started caring more about pleasing wealthy clients than creating buildings that would truly stand the test of time? "What do you suggest?" he asked quietly, and the change in his tone made everyone on the site go still. Luna blinked, clearly surprised that he was actually asking her opinion instead of dismissing her outright. She hesitated for just a moment before spreading out a different set of plans she had been carrying in her bag. "We need to go deeper with the foundation," she said, her voice losing some of its sharp edge as she pointed to her calculations. "At least another 8 feet, with reinforced concrete pillars extending down to the bedrock." "Yes, It will cost more upfront, but it will ensure this building lasts for generations instead of becoming a liability. Zachary leaned over the table, studying her work. Her calculations were meticulous, her reasoning sound. She had clearly spent considerable time on this, probably staying up late going over the data that everyone else had glossed over, including him. "This will add at least $4 million to the budget," he said, but it was not an argument anymore. It was a statement of fact. "I know," Luna replied, her shoulders squaring as if bracing for another fight. "But it is the right thing to do. The right thing to do." When was the last time someone had said that to him in the context of a project? Usually it was all about profit margins, timelines, investor expectations. But here was this woman, willing to make herself unpopular and probably unemployable by the biggest developer on the coast, all because she actually cared about building something that would not fail. "I will talk to Marcus," Zachary said, rolling up his original plans. "We will present your proposal this afternoon." Luna's eyes widened. "You will?" "Yes," he said, meeting her gaze directly, "because you are right. I have been so focused on delivering what the client wants that I stopped thinking about what the building needs." He paused, then added, "Thank you for not backing down." A flush crept up Luna's neck and she looked away, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "I was just doing my job." "No," Zachary said firmly, "you were doing more than your job." Most people would have just kept quiet and collected their paycheck. The tension on the construction site had shifted from hostile to something else, something charged and uncertain. Doug cleared his throat again and announced that everyone should take an early lunch, and the crew scattered quickly, leaving Zachary and Luna alone with the blueprints between them. "I apologize for being so aggressive," Luna said after a moment of silence. "I have a tendency to come on too strong when I feel like something important is being overlooked." "Do not apologize," Zachary said. "I needed someone to challenge me. I have been coasting on my reputation for too long, taking the easy path instead of the right one." He studied her face, noting the intelligence in her eyes, the determination in the set of her jaw. "How long have you been a structural engineer?" "5 years," Luna replied. "I worked for a major firm in Boston before moving out here 6 months ago. I wanted a fresh start, and California seemed like the place for opportunities." "What made you leave Boston?" Luna's expression became guarded. "Personal reasons. My father passed away, and I needed to get away from all the memories for a while." She shook her head as if clearing away painful thoughts. "But that is not relevant to the project." Zachary felt a pang of sympathy. He knew about loss, about needing to escape. His own mother had died when he was in college, and he had thrown himself into his work to avoid dealing with the grief. Maybe that was when he had started losing sight of what really mattered, when success had become a way to fill the emptiness instead of a genuine passion. "I am sorry for your loss," he said quietly, "and I am grateful that you ended up here on this project. I think you might have just saved me from making a terrible mistake." Luna looked up at him, and something in her expression softened. "I have been following your work for years, actually. Your design for the Riverside Tower in Seattle is what made me want to become a structural engineer in the first place. I was in college when that building went up, and I remember thinking that whoever designed it understood how to make something both beautiful and fundamentally sound." She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "That is why I was so disappointed when I saw the plans for this resort. It did not seem like something the architect who designed Riverside Tower would approve." Her words hit Zachary harder than any criticism had in years. She was right. The man who had designed Riverside Tower would never have cut corners like this. That man had cared about legacy, about creating structures that would inspire people. When had he lost that? "You are absolutely right," he said, his voice rough with emotion he had not expected to feel. I have not been that architect for a while now, but maybe it is time I remembered how to be him again. The meeting with Marcus Reinhardt that afternoon was exactly as uncomfortable as Zachary had anticipated. The billionaire developer sat behind his massive desk in his downtown office, his expression growing darker with every word of Luna's proposal. $4 million more, Marcus repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. You want me to add $4 million to a budget that is already stretched thin? The building will not be safe without these changes, Luna said, refusing to be intimidated even though Zachary could see her hands trembling slightly in her lap. I have run the numbers multiple times, consulted with geological experts and verified every calculation. If you build with the current plans, you are putting future occupants at risk. Marcus turned his cold gaze to Zachary. Is this true? Or is your engineer being overly cautious? Zachary thought about all the times he had smoothed things over with clients, assured them that everything would be fine, that his designs were flawless. He thought about the reputation he had built, the connections he had made, the future projects that could disappear if he alienated someone as powerful as Marcus Reinhardt. Then he looked at Luna, sitting straight-backed in her chair despite her obvious nervousness, and he thought about what she had said about Riverside Tower, about the architect he used to be. She is right, Zachary said firmly. The current foundation design is inadequate for the site conditions. If we proceed as planned, we will be creating a structure that could fail catastrophically within a decade. I cannot put my name on that. Marcus's face flushed red. Cannot or will not? Both, Zachary replied, his voice steady. I am formally recommending that we implement Miss Sterling's proposed changes. If you choose not to follow that recommendation, I will have to withdraw from the project. The silence in the office was deafening. Luna's head whipped around to stare at Zachary, shock written plainly across her face. He had not told her he was planning to take such a hard stance, had not prepared her for the possibility that they both might be fired on the spot. Marcus stood up, his hands flat on his desk. You do realize what you are saying. You are willing to walk away from a $20 million contract over $4 million in additional foundation work. Yes, Zachary said, because Miss Sterling is right. I have been compromising my principles to keep clients happy, and it stops now. This building needs a proper foundation, and if you will not provide one, then someone else will have to design it. Marcus stared at him for a long moment, then slowly sat back down. You have changed, Grayson. The man I hired 6 months ago would have found a way to make this work within budget. You are right, Zachary acknowledged. But that man was forgetting why he became an architect in the first place. Miss Sterling reminded me. Marcus's gaze shifted to Luna, studying her with renewed interest. You must be very persuasive, Miss Sterling. I have never seen Zachary take such a firm stance against a client's wishes. I am not persuasive, Luna said quietly. I just care about building things that will not fall down and hurt people. That should not be a controversial position. Something in Marcus's expression changed. For a moment, the hard businessman exterior cracked and Zachary saw something else underneath. Respect, maybe, or recognition. My grandfather was a builder, Marcus said unexpectedly. He taught me that a man is only as good as what he leaves behind. He would have liked you, Miss Sterling. He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Get me the updated budget projections for the resort project. Yes, add $4 million to the foundation work. I know, just do it. He hung up and looked at both of them. You have your improved foundation. But Grayson, if this project goes over budget anywhere else, it is coming out of your fees. Understood, Zachary said, relief flooding through him. As they left Marcus's office, Luna was silent until they reached the elevator. Then she turned to Zachary, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You were really going to walk away," she said. "You were going to give up $20 million. It would not have been worth it," Zachary replied. "Not if it meant compromising the safety of everyone who will eventually stay in that resort. You were right to push back, and I should have done it from the start." The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside. Luna reached out and pressed the button for the ground floor, then turned to face him. "I misjudged you," she admitted. "When we first met this morning, I thought you were just another arrogant architect who cared more about his vision than about reality. But you actually listened. You actually changed your mind when presented with evidence. Do you know how rare that is?" Zachary felt warmth spreading through his chest at her words. "I have a feeling that you are pretty rare yourself, Luna Sterling." She smiled then, a real smile that transformed her entire face. "We make a good team, I think. Your creative vision combined with my obsessive need to make sure things do not collapse. I would like to work with you on the rest of this project," Zachary said, the words coming out before he had fully thought them through. "Not just as the structural engineer on record, but as a true partner. I want your input on every design decision, your perspective on every choice we make. Will you do that?" Luna searched his face, looking for something. "Yes," she said finally. "I would like that." Over the following weeks, Zachary found himself looking forward to their daily meetings in a way that had nothing to do with architecture. Luna was brilliant, yes, but she was also funny in an understated way, quick to point out the absurdities in construction regulations or the ridiculous demands that Marcus would occasionally send through. She worked harder than anyone Zachary had ever met, often arriving at the site before dawn and staying until the light failed, and she cared. About every detail, every decision, every potential consequence of their choices. It was infectious, that passion. Zachary found himself caring again too, really caring about the work instead of just going through the motions. They were reviewing the plans for the resort's main lobby one evening, long after everyone else had gone home, when Luna suddenly looked up from the blueprints. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. Zachary set down his pencil. "Of course." "Why did you stop caring? About your work, I mean. You said I reminded you of the architect you used to be, but what happened to make you lose sight of that?" He was quiet for a long moment, considering how much to share. But something about Luna's open, honest expression made him want to tell the truth. "My mother died when I was 21, he said. "I was in my senior year of college, about to start applying for jobs at architecture firms. She had been my biggest supporter, always encouraging me to follow my dreams, to create things that mattered." He paused, the old grief still painful even after all these years. "After she died, I threw myself into work. I wanted to make her proud, to become successful enough that her faith in me would be justified. And I did become successful. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about creating meaningful work and started being about winning, about being the best, about having the biggest clients and the most prestigious projects." Luna reached across the table and placed her hand over his. The gesture was simple, but it sent electricity through his entire body. "She would be proud of you," Luna said softly. "Not because of how successful you became, but because you had the courage to change course when you realized you were heading in the wrong direction. That takes strength." Zachary turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. "What about you? You said you came to California for a fresh start. What were you running from?" Luna's smile was sad. "My father was a construction worker. He spent his whole life building other people's dreams, and he loved it. But when I was in college, there was an accident on a job site. The building he was working on had a structural failure. The engineering firm had cut corners to save money, and the whole third floor collapsed during construction. Her voice broke slightly. My father and 3 other men died. The company paid out settlements, but no one was ever held criminally responsible. Luna, Zachary breathed, understanding flooding through him. That is why you became a structural engineer, why you care so much about safety. I never want another family to go through what we went through, Luna said, tears sliding down her cheeks now. I never want another person to die because someone decided that profit was more important than human life. That is why I could not stay quiet when I saw those plans. That is why I will never stay quiet, even if it costs me every job I ever have. Zachary stood up and moved around the table, pulling Luna to her feet and into his arms. She came willingly, burying her face against his chest as she cried. He held her tightly, feeling the pain radiating off her, wishing he could take it away. You are the most remarkable person I have ever met, he said into her hair. Your father would be so proud of who you have become. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the dim construction trailer while the sun set outside. When Luna finally pulled back, her eyes were red but clear. I am sorry, she said. I did not mean to break down like that. Do not apologize, Zachary said, gently wiping away the tears still clinging to her cheeks. You trusted me with something important. I am honored. Luna looked up at him, and the air between them suddenly felt charged with something new, something that had been building since that first argument in the lobby. Zachary cupped her face in his hands, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She did not pull away. The kiss started soft, tentative, both of them testing this new dimension to their relationship. But it quickly deepened as Luna wrapped her arms around his neck and Zachary pulled her closer. She tasted like the coffee they had been drinking all day and something sweeter, something uniquely her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luna laughed shakily. That was unexpected. Was it though? Zachary asked, tracing his thumb along her jaw. I have been thinking about doing that for weeks now. Me too, Luna admitted, but I was not sure if you felt the same way. You are this famous architect, and I am just a structural engineer who yells at you. You are not just anything, Zachary said firmly. You are the woman who reminded me why I fell in love with architecture in the first place. You are the woman who has the courage to stand up for what is right, even when it is hard. You are the woman I cannot stop thinking about, no matter how hard I try to focus on work. Luna's smile was radiant. So what happens now? Now, Zachary said, pressing another soft kiss to her lips, we finish this project together, and then we figure out what comes after, if you want to, that is. I want to, Luna said without hesitation. I really, really want to. The resort project took another 8 months to complete, and every day of it, Zachary fell more deeply in love with Luna Sterling. She challenged him constantly, pushing him to be better, to think harder, to never settle for good enough when excellent was possible. Their collaboration resulted in a design that was both stunning and structurally sound, a building that would stand for generations. But more than that, she made him laugh. She made him remember that there was life outside of work, that success meant nothing if you did not have someone to share it with. They spent their evenings walking along the beach near the construction site, talking about everything and nothing. Luna told him about her childhood in Boston, about her mother who had never recovered from losing her husband, about her decision to move across the country to escape the weight of grief. Zachary told her about his own struggles with loss, about the pressure he had put on himself to succeed, about the loneliness that had crept in when he realized that professional success did not fill the emptiness inside. I think we both needed to find each other, Luna said one night as they sat on the sand, watching the waves crash against the shore. I needed someone to show me that there are still people in this industry who care about doing the right thing. And maybe you needed someone to remind you why you got into this field in the first place. I needed you, Zachary corrected, pulling her closer. Specifically you, not just anyone. You. Marcus Reinhardt attended the resort's grand opening, which was covered by every major architectural magazine and news outlet on the West Coast. The building was spectacular, a soaring glass and steel structure that seemed to grow organically from the clifftop site. But what really impressed the critics was the engineering, the way the structure had been designed to withstand earthquakes, high winds, and the test of time. You two did remarkable work, Marcus said to Zachary and Luna during the opening reception. I will admit, I was angry when you pushed back on the budget. But you were right. This building is something special, something that will define my legacy. Thank you for not letting me cut corners. After Marcus moved away to talk to other guests, Luna leaned against Zachary's side. We did it, she said softly. We built something that matters. We did, Zachary agreed. And I could not have done it without you. He paused, his heart suddenly racing. Actually, there is something I need to ask you. Luna turned to face him, curiosity in her eyes. What is it? Zachary took a deep breath. He had been planning this moment for weeks, waiting for the right time. I want to start a new firm, not just an architecture practice, but a collaborative design studio where architects and engineers work together from the very beginning of every project. Where safety and beauty are given equal weight, where we never compromise on doing the right thing, even if it is more expensive or takes longer. He took both of her hands in his. And I want you to be my partner, not just in this firm, but in everything. Luna Sterling, will you take this journey with me? Luna's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Are you asking me to be your business partner? I am asking you to be my everything, Zachary said. My business partner, yes, but also my life partner. I love you, Luna. I love your passion, your integrity, your brilliant mind, and your beautiful heart. I love the way you challenge me and support me and make me want to be better. I love you, and I want to build a life with you if you will have me. Yes, Luna said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes to all of it. I love you too, Zachary. I think I started falling for you the moment you actually listened to me instead of dismissing my concerns. You saw me, really saw me, and that meant everything. Zachary pulled her into his arms and kissed her right there in the middle of the reception, not caring who was watching. Luna kissed him back with everything she had, and for the first time in years, Zachary felt completely, perfectly content. The firm they founded together, Grayson Sterling Design, quickly gained a reputation for innovative projects that prioritized both aesthetics and safety. They worked on schools and hospitals, residential towers and civic buildings, each project approached with the same careful attention to detail that had defined the resort. But more importantly, they built a life together. They bought a house overlooking the ocean, filled it with books and blueprints and the comfortable chaos of two people who loved their work. They adopted a scruffy rescue dog named Archie, who insisted on attending every design meeting. They traveled to architecture conferences and remote job sites, always together, always partners. 3 years after the resort opened, Zachary and Luna got married on the beach where they had spent so many evenings talking about their dreams. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family, but it was perfect. Luna wore a simple white dress that caught the ocean breeze, and Zachary could not take his eyes off her as she walked toward him across the sand. I promise to always listen when you tell me I am wrong, he said during his vows, making everyone laugh. I promise to support your passion for safety and structural integrity, even when it makes projects more complicated. I promise to be your partner in every sense of the word, for as long as we both shall live. Luna's vows were equally heartfelt. I promise to challenge you and encourage you in equal measure. I promise to remind you why we do this work when things get difficult. I promise to build a life with you that is as strong and beautiful as the buildings we design together. I love you, Zachary Grayson, and I will love you until the day I die. Marcus Reinhardt attended their wedding, having become an unexpected friend over the years. You two changed my life, he told them during the reception. Made me remember that leaving a legacy is not about how much money you make, but about what you leave behind for the next generation. Thank you for that. 5 years into their marriage, Luna discovered she was pregnant. Zachary was terrified and thrilled in equal measure, suddenly hyper-aware of every potential danger in their house, every sharp corner and unstable surface. You cannot engineer away every risk, Luna told him gently as he installed his third set of cabinet locks. Sometimes you just have to trust that things will work out. That is rich, coming from the woman who once made us halt construction for 2 days because she thought she detected a quarter-inch variance in the foundation measurements, Zachary replied, but he was smiling. Their daughter, Emily Rose Grayson, was born on a sunny morning in May. She had Luna's dark eyes and Zachary's stubborn chin, and from the moment Zachary held her tiny form in his arms, he understood what it meant to love something more than your own life. She is perfect, he whispered to Luna as she rested in the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing. She is, Luna agreed. And she is going to grow up knowing that her parents built things that matter, that they never compromised their principles, that they loved each other and their work and her with everything they had. Zachary leaned down to kiss his wife's forehead, his infant daughter cradled carefully between them. I never thought I could be this happy. Before I met you, I was just going through the motions, pretending that professional success was enough. You gave me back my purpose, Luna. You gave me everything. We gave each other everything, Luna corrected softly. That is what happens when you find the person who sees you for who you really are and loves you anyway. As Emily grew, she showed an early fascination with building things, constantly stacking blocks and asking questions about how structures stayed upright. Zachary and Luna would work from home sometimes, letting their daughter play on the floor of their home office while they sketched designs and argued good-naturedly about load calculations. She is going to be an engineer, Luna declared one afternoon as 5-year-old Emily constructed an elaborate block tower with careful attention to weight distribution. An architect, Zachary countered. Look at the aesthetic sense in that design. Maybe she will be both, Luna suggested. Like her parents, working together to make something stronger than either could build alone. Zachary pulled his wife close, watching their daughter play. That sounds perfect. Grayson's sterling design continued to thrive, becoming one of the most respected firms on the West Coast. They won awards for their innovative approach to sustainable building and their commitment to safety. But what Zachary was most proud of was not the accolades or the prestigious clients. It was the fact that every single building they designed was built to last. Every structure was safe and sound, constructed with integrity and care. Because Luna had taught him that success was not about how much money you made or how famous you became. It was about doing the right thing, even when it was hard. It was about caring enough to stand up and fight for what mattered. 10 years after that first argument on the construction site, Zachary and Luna returned to the resort for an anniversary celebration Marcus was throwing. The building had weathered storms and earthquakes, had hosted thousands of guests, and stood as beautifully as the day it opened. This is where it all started, Luna said as they stood in the lobby, looking up at the soaring ceiling they had designed together. "Where you proved to me that there were still architects who cared about more than their egos." "This is where you saved me," Zachary corrected. "Where you reminded me who I wanted to be. I was so lost before I met you, Luna. I had forgotten what it meant to create something meaningful." Luna turned to face him, the woman he had fallen in love with all those years ago, who had only become more beautiful with time. "We saved each other, I think. I was drowning in grief and anger, and you showed me that there was still good in this industry, still people worth fighting for." Zachary kissed her softly, right there in the lobby where they had first met, where she had challenged him and changed his life forever. "I love you," he said simply. "Thank you for arguing with me that day. Thank you for not backing down. Thank you for being the one who cares." "Always," Luna promised, her hand finding his. "I will always care. About the work, about doing things right, and most of all about you." They left the resort as the sun was setting, driving home to where Emily was waiting with the babysitter, probably covered in paint or glue or whatever art project she had decided to undertake that evening. Their life was messy and busy and full, but it was theirs. Built on a foundation of mutual respect and love and shared purpose, constructed with care and integrity, designed to last a lifetime. And as Zachary pulled into their driveway, Luna's hand warm in his, he thought about that morning 10 years ago when a fierce structural engineer had refused to let him compromise his principles. He thought about how different his life might have been if she had stayed quiet, if she had just gone along with the inadequate plans like everyone else. But Luna Sterling had never been good at staying quiet. She cared too much, fought too hard, believed too strongly in doing the right thing. And that passionate commitment to integrity had not only saved a building from potential disaster, it had saved Zachary himself, pulled him back from a path that would have led to emptiness and regret. She was the one who cared, truly cared, about more than just the surface appearance of things. She looked deeper, saw the foundational truths that others missed. And in seeing those truths, she had helped him become the man he was always meant to be. Later that night, after Emily was tucked into bed and Archie was snoring on his favorite cushion, Zachary and Luna sat on their back deck, watching the stars appear over the ocean. Luna was reviewing plans for their latest project, a children's hospital that would be their most challenging design yet. Zachary was sketching ideas for the entrance atrium, trying to create something that would feel hopeful and bright for sick children and worried parents. "What do you think about incorporating more natural light here?" Luna asked, pointing to a section of the plans. "Studies show that sunlight improves patient outcomes." "That is brilliant," Zachary said, already modifying his sketch. "We could add a skylight system with adjustable panels, so the light can be controlled based on time of day and patient needs." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of easy collaboration that came from years of partnership. Finally, Luna set down her pencil and stretched. "Do you ever think about what your life would be like if we had never met?" she asked. Zachary considered the question seriously. "I would probably still be designing buildings for wealthy clients, cutting corners to maximize profits, feeling empty inside but not understanding why. I would have money and success, but not purpose, not joy." He pulled her close. "What about you?" "I would still be the angry structural engineer fighting losing battles, getting fired from project after project because I could not keep my mouth shut about safety violations," Luna said. "I would be righteous but alone, burning myself out trying to save everyone but never letting anyone save me." She nestled against his shoulder. "We needed each other. I needed someone who would listen. You needed someone who would speak up." "I needed you," Zachary said simply. "Not just someone." "You," specifically you, with your brilliant mind and fierce heart and absolute unwillingness to compromise on what matters. You are my foundation, Luna. Everything good in my life is built on loving you." Luna tilted her face up to kiss him. "That is the most romantic thing you have ever said, and you said it using architectural metaphors. I love you so much." They laughed together, then sat watching the stars, two people who had found each other against all odds. An architect who had lost his way and an engineer determined to never lose sight of what mattered. Together, they had built something stronger than either could have created alone. A marriage, a family, a business, a life. And it all started with an argument about foundation materials, with Luna refusing to back down even when it would have been easier to stay quiet. She had cared enough to fight, and in fighting, she had won not just better building plans, but Zachary's heart. Years later, when Emily was graduating from college with dual degrees in architecture and structural engineering, she would give a speech about her parents, about how they had shown her that the best things in life were built on strong foundations of integrity and love, about how her mother had taught her to never compromise on safety, and her father had taught her to dream big and create beautiful things. But most importantly, Emily would say, they taught me that the right partner makes you better. That true love is about challenging each other to be your best selves, about supporting each other's passions, about building something together that is stronger than anything you could build alone. Zachary would hold Luna's hand during that speech, tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed with gratitude for the life they had built. And Luna would squeeze his hand back, remembering that young architect who had actually listened when she challenged him, who had chosen integrity over profit, who had proved that there were still people in the world worth believing in. Their story was not a fairy tale with instant love at first sight. It was better than that. It was a real story about two broken people who found healing in each other, about a man who had lost his way and a woman who helped him find his path again, about caring enough to speak up and loving enough to listen. And every building they designed together, every structure they brought into being with careful attention to both beauty and safety, was a testament to that love. Physical proof that when two people commit to supporting each other, to building something together, the result can stand the test of time. As Zachary and Luna grew older, their love only deepened. They weathered challenges together, celebrating triumphs and supporting each other through difficulties. When Luna's mother passed away, Zachary held her through the grief, just as she had been there for him through his own losses. When Zachary was diagnosed with a health scare that turned out to be benign, Luna never left his side, her steady presence anchoring him through the fear. They traveled the world together, visiting the great architectural wonders and studying different building techniques. They took Emily on these trips when she was young, instilling in her a love of design and structure that would shape her own career path. But their favorite place was always home, the house overlooking the ocean where they had built their life together. The walls were covered with photos documenting their journey, from that first tense meeting at the construction site to their wedding day to Emily's birth, to countless family vacations and celebrations. And in Zachary's home office, framed on the wall where he could see it every day, were the original plans for the resort. Both versions, his initial design and Luna's corrected foundation specifications, hung side by side. A reminder of where they had started, of the argument that had changed everything. Sometimes clients would ask about those frames, curious why he displayed an outdated design alongside the corrected version. And Zachary would smile and tell them about the brilliant structural engineer who had cared enough to challenge him, who had seen past his reputation to the compromise he was making, who had refused to let him settle for good enough. "She saved that building," he would say. "But more than that, she saved me. She reminded me why I became an architect in the first place, and she has been my partner in every sense of the word ever since. Those plans represent the moment my life truly began." Luna would sometimes overhear these explanations and shake her head, embarrassed by the praise. But Zachary meant every word. She was the one who cared, who had always cared about doing things right. About building structures that would last, relationships that would endure, a life that would matter. And he had spent every day since that first argument proving to her that he cared too, that her passion had awakened something in him that had been dormant for too long. That together they could create something beautiful and lasting and true. Their love story was not conventional. It started with conflict, with disagreement, with a fundamental challenge to the path Zachary had been walking. But that was what made it perfect. Because real love was not about easy agreement or comfortable complacency. It was about pushing each other to be better, about caring enough to speak the hard truths, about building something together that could weather any storm. Luna Sterling had argued with the billionaire's architect, and in doing so, had shown him something he had lost sight of. She was the one who actually cared, who put principle over profit, safety over success, integrity over approval. And Zachary had fallen completely, irrevocably in love with her for it. Their life together was their greatest design, a structure built on love and respect and shared purpose. And like all the buildings they created, it was made to last. Every beam carefully placed, every joint reinforced, every foundation solid and true. A testament to what could happen when two people committed to doing things right, to never compromising on what mattered, to caring deeply about their work and each other. As they sat together on their deck that night, watching the stars and planning their next project, Zachary pulled Luna close and kissed the top of her head. She leaned into him, content and happy, exactly where she belonged. "Thank you for arguing with me," Zachary whispered. "Thank you for listening," Luna whispered back. And in that exchange was everything they had built together. A partnership based on challenge and support, disagreement and understanding, fierce independence and even fiercer devotion. They had found each other in conflict and forged that conflict into something beautiful. A love that would last as long as the buildings they designed, standing strong against whatever storms life might bring. Their story was proof that the best relationships were not built on smooth agreement, but on the willingness to challenge each other toward excellence. That caring enough to speak up and loving enough to listen could create something truly extraordinary. That the right argument at the right time with the right person could change everything. Luna Sterling had cared enough to fight for what was right, even when it would have been easier to stay silent. And Zachary Grayson had loved her for it, building a life with her that was stronger and more beautiful than anything he could have created alone. Together, they were unstoppable. Together, they were home.